Hello and welcome to Show Me the Money Rugby League TV on YouTube. It's Mick the Game Caller Gledall and we're joined by Craig Show Me the Money Harrison. This is a very, somewhat a little bit different, a bit of an exciting sort of transfer special. We're going to look at 3 big transfers that have happened in the wonderful world of rugby league. We're going to talk about Toby King, of course, and the transfer exchange between Huddersfield and Warrington with Toby King and Jake Wardle. We're going to focus on Alex Mellor leaving Leeds for Castleford, and we've got obviously the Lewis Dodd situation at St Helens where he's extended his contract at St Helens. We'll start, Craig, with the big news that has come out in the past week, which of course is Toby King. He's going to go to Huddersfield, his hometown club, and Jake Wardle is obviously going to go to Warrington. It's going to be initial till the end of the season, a loan move, and then it's going to be reviewed. Darryl Powell, I've heard Darryl's thoughts on it. He's happy for it to go ahead. Ian Watson, similar position. You've called this many shows ago, many months ago. You think this could be the future in how clubs operate, in potentially getting the right player in, the right fit for the club. Obviously, the season's already started. I presume, Craig, when you go into detail about it, there's not much money involved, if any money whatsoever. Player swap. It'll be reviewed at the end of the year. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think should happen a lot more. Whether it does, there's egos. Usually the coach's ego gets involved and that they both rate their own player a lot better. And they don't want... I suppose there's sometimes as well, mate, there's a fear of, you're playing, going to another club and absolutely killing it. And that looks bad on you as a coach. You could be under pressure. And the player goes to another club and he absolutely kills it. And then all the fans, especially social media these days... they'll all blame the coach, saying, "Oh my God, he couldn't get the best out of him. He can't." So there's a fear factor. What happened on I think it was the Rob Mellor and Lewis Johnson, that were an unbelievable deal to make. Both players went on and have gone on to have great years and a half with the clubs they went to. So Lewis Johnson were at Warrington. I knew wasn't going to get a regular game, but I knew that Hull KR wanted a back rower to get him some game time. I knew Rob Mellor had 2-year at thing and the same, so we got that one done. This is a little bit like that. So I spoke to, I can talk now because it's all done, and the clubs want to do their business. But I spoke to Carl Fitzpatrick, and Darryl. I spoke about how Toby was going down. He was lacking a bit of, maybe a little bit of confidence, and I thought he'd lost a bit of his magic from the year before. And I think it was simply. Darryl's style is very intense and very, I want this, I want that, I want this. And I think Toby's quite a laid-back kid. It's same as personality and everything, making it in any form of life. And I think Toby were finding it hard to adjust. Darryl wanting, that. And I think Toby were trying a bit of time to adjust. And I felt it was a time in his career where he couldn't really afford not to be playing. I went to the Wakefield game the week before and he missed a couple of tackles, but I thought he had a great game. He then got rested, or we call it dropped. And I talked to Toby in depth, and I felt something. I felt he probably needed a freshen up. He was just a bit of lack of confidence. I then spoke to Fitzy about it. Spoke to Darryl. We're all good friends, mate. When you're good friends, you can all talk honestly. So I spoke to Darryl. I spoke to Fitzy. I said, "Look, I'm thinking this. How do we think Toby will play next week? Where we're thinking?" And I said, because if there's a chance, I'd like to get him. I've got to have him playing. I think he's got a big year ahead of him. He's 25. And then I'd spoke to Huddersfield as well, a little bit about where they were, and I think Jake got mentioned he wasn't playing, and I said, wow. And I just put it out there. I just thought, I wonder if they could swap. I'm trying to get this new thing where a lot of the teams are capped up, Mick. So if you realise when your cap's there's no space to manoeuvre to do anything. So they've got to try, and I said, why don't we look at this? And I said, please don't get egos involved. If you think Toby's in front of Jake, you think Jake's worth more, I said, don't get that. I'm not getting involved in any of that. That's for fans to discuss. But if we can do a deal to the end of the year, which gives Toby a little bit of time to adjust where his head has been, Jake probably the same. They both could play big parts in what's going to happen at either club, and they could review it at the end of the year. I seen the review as being the best one. Now that could mean, let's say that could mean 3 or 4 things. One, it could mean that Toby's wow, Mojo's back, and he thinks, come on. He does get on with Daryl, so it's not like they don't get on. They talk all the time. He loves Warrington. I seen a couple of things somebody sent me on social media, and I said, Toby's not a money grabber. Let's get that out there. Absolutely played for unders for 5 or 6 years. He's played for under money. He got his big deal last time, which he deserved, Mick. He'd worked 6 or 7 years to achieve that deal. Before that, he went to a massive unders. Massive, certainly money ball money. So he's certainly not a money grabber. Number 2 is he goes to Huddersfield, and Jake kills it at Warrington, and he kills it at Huddersfield. And he loves the atmosphere, and he says, right, come on, let's try and make this work at end of year. There's still a lot to do on that. Thirdly, Mick, he could come back and he could say, do you know what? I've loved my time at Warrington. I've loved my time at Huddersfield. And then there might be a deal with somebody else. Another club might come in. Just to let people know, Mick, as well, before we did sign our deal, we had quite a bit of interest from the NRL, again, because of the form Toby had shown. Now, they had Toby as a centre stroke back rower. 2 or 3 of the biggest clubs over there really wanted to things, but we felt it were right for him to stay at Warrington, and he'd stayed loyal to Warrington as they had stayed loyal to him. I never felt 1 minute of anything, Mick, off either party. That's why it went through. Carl Fitzpatrick, Richard Doulis, unbelievable. If this is better for the players at this moment in their careers, let's get it done. Carl Fitzpatrick, is it better for the players? Myself, is it better for the players? All 3 agreed it were better for the players. All coaches agreed it's better for the players at the moment. A perfect deal. Don't look deep into it. Have your fun, fans. I'm sure, as I say, Warrington fans, I don't think Toby's been fantastic for him. Has he been off form this year? Yeah. And that's probably the reason this has happened. You know what I mean? It's probably a little bit of where was Toby hit such a peak 18 months ago. He hit that, what I call the England peak. He was selected into there. I thought he was the top 2 centre in the comp. So let's find out why that has dropped a bit. Now, let's be honest, and we're all going to be honest on this show. Warrington have dropped an all, Mick. It's not Toby who's dropped his form. The full squad, they've only won, I think, 4 or 5 games. So that's because they're adjusting to a new coach. That's all that is. This might happen. I thought about this the other day. I thought, if Daryl came in to Warrington and expected to go and be finishing top 2 or 3 in the first season without any adjustment, we're all fools. He's complete opposite of Pricey. He's the complete opposite personality of Tony Smith. So all that's gone in previous, then Daryl's come along. And Daryl's more of he's very much like, let's do it this way. He wants to coach you his way, and if you've got to buy into his system, that takes some massive adjustment. So bottom line is, I think it's a fantastic deal for everybody concerned, and hopefully this goes for Jake, and this goes for Toby. Jake's not my player, Toby is. I've had Toby since he was 17 with his brother. I'm close friends with family. I think a lot of them lads. Let's hope they both do this end a lot of justice, and we'll sit down at end of year and go through rest.
And obviously, Craig, with it being a World Cup year and you've got that healthy competition between Jake and Toby, this could really put the cat amongst the pigeons and see who gets that England spot in England team at the end of the year.
100%. It's even scarier, isn't it? The levels are there now. Now I don't know, because Toby obviously played for Ireland, so I think Toby. I know George has a loyal team. If George he wasn't selected, but if he did, I think he'd still play for Ireland. Toby obviously went to the England Knights. He went to the England camp, so that'll be different. But yeah, listen. It's quite funny. And by the way, I've just looked down. I've just come back from Glastonbury, Mick, so I'm looking around the festival week thing on here. I'm still trying to recover on this one, but I think if you look at both players, so different, Mick. I think Jake's definitely a better direct runner. He's definitely got more pace. I suppose yardage, I don't know. I would say Toby would be on a stat form. He'd probably be a little bit in front on an average. Toby's got a great pair of hands, but Jake's obviously dynamic, direct. Will he suit Powley's? Yeah, he maybe will. I managed to get back yesterday and I watched the Hull KR. I watched Huddersfield game. Ricky Latelli actually came off injured between minutes to go, and I bet you I'm thinking, wow, Toby might have a chance straight away to go in. Could have been, terrible on Ricky, obviously. I hope he's okay. But if Toby comes in, he's be a top 3 club in it straight away. That's how it works out. And vice versa. Warrington got a great result at Hull. And Jake's going into a winning side. So I think Mick, you know what, Mick, at end of year, please don't look too deep into it. I think at end of year, both lads will sit down with the families, with the agents, and we'll sit with the clubs, and it'll be what is best for the clubs and the players. There's not, I'm sure, who said it, Mick, there, the CEOs of both clubs, and they're both coaches. Everybody's cool with it. Everyone is cool with this.
Well, there we go. That's Toby King and Jake Wardle. The next bit of news, Craig, this week in this full 80 minutes Show Me the Money Rugby League TV on YouTube's transfer special is Alex Mellor. Alex Mellor, of course, joining the Leeds Rhinos from Huddersfield. He's now being told that he's surplus to requirements, probably the best phrase, best term. But obviously, he's got a new club. He's gone early. He's been released by Leeds. He's at Castleford. 2.5-year deal. If you include.
Did he score yesterday? I told you I've been Glastonbury, so my memory at the moment's not great. But
I'll be brutally honest, Craig.
I think I saw a grubber, right. And I saw a back rower dive on the ball against Catalans. I hope it was Alex. No, maybe that with a Glastonbury
it Blair, Hampshire and Alfords for the try scorers.
So there goes. Thank you to Glastonbury.
But in terms of Alex Mellor, obviously, Craig, you've known about this for a number of weeks, and no real surprise when I spoke to him at the recent Bradford-Sheffield game where he was there for 80 minutes. Obviously, it gets dressed up as Rowan wants to have a look at you to see the full 80 minutes, but obviously word's already out in media circles that he's signed a 2.5-year deal at Castleford. Give us your thoughts on it all. Why has it not worked out at Leeds? Obviously, Leeds paid good money after his performances for Huddersfield. And Castleford and Lee Radford, what a player they've got, an exciting young player, homegrown, of course, who come through the Bradford Bulls Academy, so he's got that pedigree of your Whiteheads, your Batemans, very, very in and around those players at the time of the Bulls Academy. He's now at Castleford.
I always find it hard, Mick, when people say, why is it not turned out? I suppose that's I always say it depends in the eye of the beholder, whether you think somebody's been a success. I thought it were a great success at that club. I thought when Gailey were there and they had a little combination, he hit a lot of leads on him. He hits a lovely line. I thought he improved everything about his game. I thought it were great at Huddersfield, as was Bradford, as he was at Bradford. Great kid, great athlete, great signing for Cass. What's the answer to add? I think it's one people's opinion, Mick. I think if you look at what they've got, Leeds, they obviously thought that maybe Walters played the other day. I noticed Sam played. They've got Gannon. They've got Reece Martin. They've got God, who's my other one? They've got Dobbo. James Donaldson. Sorry, they've got James in there, and I think it won't surprise me. Again, with the cap, Mick, people have got to free money up from the cap urgently.
At Leeds.
Because imagine this, and I hope everyone gets this. Rowan's got to go in, and at the moment it's not his side. It's Richard Agar's side. Built off Dave Furner's side. Built off Brian Mack's side. There's nothing in there what I smell of Rowan. Rowan likes people who run the ball, plays at a fast tempo, wants to play open rugby. At the moment, how does Rowan Smith make his name in this country for Leeds if not one of the players are his choice? So the first thing he does is go, and I bet there's going to be more players at Leeds, by the way. I have a feeling it's probably going to be 5. But I think he's gone, he can go. I think Alex made it clear to Rowan when Rowan said about maybe being a squad player and playing, maybe. And I think Alex more or less said, look, I'm at that time in my life, I don't want to do that. Honest and transparency is key. If Rowan doesn't fancy him playing regular every week, I think Alex said, nah, that's, So I think that made it easier for Rowan to say, that's one gone. We can get his money back. It was an easy sell to Cass. I think Radders has been a fan. I think Lasty and the lads had been a fan. He's exactly what I was told Cass were looking for, a bit more leg speed, a bit more athleticism. It was one phone call with Gary, one phone call with Mark, one phone call with Radders, one phone call with Rowan. Again, I think fans sometimes and people, like to make loads of it. It's this, it's that, it's that. Sometimes it is just that simple. It sounds boring, doesn't it? It's that simple. Player wants to play regular. Club need cap space. Player finds a great home where he's probably going to, hopefully get loads of game time. Club get to free their cap up to pursue people Rowan wants, rightly so. I say again, Mick, you're probably going to be looking at 3 or 4, maybe. I think there'll be other players at Leeds will be in similar position till Rowan can create his own players. Hopefully the fans realise that. Does that make sense? Yeah. You see a coach come in and he's actually playing with other people's players. It must be so hard. It's not your choice. So again, I hopefully there's no negativity. Hopefully both clubs will be happy. Let's see where Rowan spends that money. I think he's bought the French the lad from France. I think Rowan's going to spend some more. So, AO Mick, again, fantastic deal to make for both parties.
In terms of, obviously, Alex going and joining mid-season, Craig, again, this is obviously to release that cap pressure. Obviously, you've mentioned on previous shows, Leeds are pretty much at that limit. Are we going to see other players? Because we've seen Jack Broadbent obviously leave Leeds now. He's going to Featherstone before he joins Castleford next year. Very much similar to Callum McClelland, obviously. There's a couple of similarities with Castleford, obviously looking at those Leeds Rhinos players. Are we going to see more depart the Leeds Rhinos?
I would say it has to be for Rowan to create space for himself. That's it. Rowan and his staff have got to create their own history at Leeds, and that has to be with his choice of players, and that's no wrong with that. And do you know what? Somebody asked me this. I'm teaching my son Joe a lot about the game, and Jimmy's, I'm trying to show him a lot more. When a deal's pretty honest, Mick, it's pretty quick. There's no real. I think people think, and I can only speak for myself, but hopefully the other agents in rugby league. It's not like football, Mick, where you create moves to earn money. There's not enough money in it for you to create a move for either party or yourself. So you're not going to sit here and say, oh my God. Like, if you take a player on, Mick, sometimes that player will already be paying his other agent. Let's just say he leaves his other agent, but he's still paying him till his contract. So do agents come in and say, let's get a new deal so I can get paid? I hope not. I certainly have never done it. I couldn't think of anything worse. For me, pay the agent because he's done a great job. Respect the club. The only time I will ever get involved in moving a player is simply when you should know by your player's voice. If you speak to your player or you speak to the coach will just drop 1 or 2 into you. People don't believe me, but this is true. My friends laugh their heads off. I get reviewed off coaches sometimes, Mick, saying, don't like what you played in at weekend, and they'll tell you this and that. So you're getting a good view of what the coach are thinking about your player. You then speak to a player and he's saying, I'm not enjoying it. That's your job. My job's to work for the player, Mick. My job is then to try and make something, find out why it's not working. What is the reasons this player's form's not great? Why is the coach not picking him? Why do other people want him? Who does want him if that happened? And again, if you're friends with the CEOs, and that, again, Joe and Jimmy, you've got to build that relationship up. Eventually when they do, have a go at doing the deal, that's what you've got to build up. You've got to build up that relationship where you can phone Richard Doulis and go, hi, Richard, what do you think to this? Without him going, you what? When I phoned up when I spoke to Rowan about Liam, about Alex, and then you speak about Alex, you then sat there, you're talking away. It's all easy. It's not hard. It's like me and you. It's like Sam sat with a cup of tea having a bit of. You just give you. It's not all that. I reckon if Alex would he have dreamed of staying at Leeds? Yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm sure his first initial thought was, I can spend next 6 years at Leeds. This is sport, Mick. This is top level sport. Pressure's on Rowan. Pressure's on Leeds. You think about the clubs, Mick, who are making moves at the moment. What has Warrington and Leeds got in common?
They're desperately trying to change. Like you say, Darryl has inherited a lot of Steve Price players.
That's it.
Rowan has inherited Richard Agar's players.
There you go.
And it must be soul-destroying for a coach to go in, because I think Darryl privately, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, he's looked at Warrington and probably realised, oh my God, I have got more of a rebuilding task than anticipated.
I don't think he did at the start, and I don't think it's fair on the players to say that we're there now, because they finished historically top 4 or 5 for 5 or 6 years under Pricey. So do I think that I don't think Daryl's. I think at the start, I think it's the way they've been coached against how Daryl coaches. I can see it. I can see Mick. I want a very good footballer, but I played football a lot of my life. I got to whatever level. I had about 7 coaches, Mick, in my playing year. The only time I ever felt comfortable, because I'd gone on trial at places, you know, and had 6 months at Scunthorpe, and I'd gone there, Doncaster, and you're trying your best. But I never felt relaxed, Mick. I always felt so nervous. The only time I ever felt relaxed when one coach knew my nature, and he said to me, "We need you today. We need you today. We need you today. If you don't do anything today, we'll probably lose." And that were at the worst standard I played at, Mick. But you know what? It was the best thing I ever got. It was a coach who totally believed in me. Knew not to put too much on me, but said, as long as I felt wanted with the lads, I need the magic. We need you to produce me. That were it. That never worked for me, Mick. The stick never worked for me. Or somebody challenging me to do this and do that. You know what I mean? So you've got to find, as a player and a coach, you've got to find who suits you. I always thought can you remember Darius Boyd?
Yes, I remember Darius.
And one of the great, probably one of the best, let's say, full-back wingers of the last 20 years, probably top 10, 20. I always thought he followed Wayne Bennett to 3 clubs. And they asked him once, they said, "Why are you following Wayne?" He goes, "Because he gets me. I don't play that standard anywhere else." I think that you're lucky to find a coach in your, you know, we can look at every other sport, Mick. Coaches and players. Would Michael Jordan have been the player without having the coach who brought 6 rings to him? Do you understand that?
Yeah.
What's he called? The coach of the great side. He won. Oh God, I've got the book.
I know what you mean, Craig.
Yeah. Sorry,
basketball's not my forte.
Yeah. So he historically when he packed in, that's why Jordan walked away. Jordan said, "I can't." He rocked my boat. The same with Kobe Bryant. He rocked my boat. I don't know many sports where that doesn't happen.
Well, similar to Bill Belichick, New England Patriots.
That's it.
And Tom Brady.
That's it.
That's probably.
But he did win one without him, didn't he?
Yeah. No, well, they were the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
For my own sort of sporting acknowledgement, NFL is my sport. So
yeah. I think one of the big ones I laughed at. If you look at, I wasn't born in '66. But Dad told me that Sir Hal Ramsey was like a school teacher type coach. Everything was organised. He was a lot older than the players, so it was very much a fatherly figure to him. But he went at the time with, my dad told me, dropping Jimmy Greaves, what biggest call ever. He dropped the best centre forward in the world who'd got an illness, never brought him back in the side. Went with what he knew, and he ever taught. I've seen about 8 after-dinner speakers with them. You know what they all said? They just loved Sir Alf. They loved his way. He were like this far. I think you've got to have that bond. This is what all these players are going to find. I bet we could name any player, Mick. You could name any player today, and I'll bet you now in history it'll be a coach and a player relationship that's got the best out of him. Do you get me? Yeah. We've mentioned on the show before Paul Newlove, who I love to watch. You have to know. What I've read about Paul in his book is, if the coach put one bit of pressure on him that he didn't like, he'd clock off. It would always leave Newey alone. Just leave him alone. Do you get me? I think Tony Smith, when he came into Leeds, a lot of the influences of them young lads with Tony at that time were unbelievable. I think he were a very open-minded coach who came in. Do you get me? Yeah. And Sean Wayne, you look at Sean Wayne. Oh, here's one for people. What's the first thing Sean Wayne did? As England, he brought Mickey Mack back.
He did.
And Mickey Mack's what, 33?
Yeah.
Why do you think he's brought Mickey back?
Because they've got that player-coach relationship from the times at Wigan.
I think Mickey lived with him. Mickey lived with him as a young bloke from Leeds. I think he's there. I can remember Sean Wayne said, "I just give him keys." Yeah. And he used to come and go as he went.
Clearly there's that trust there, yeah.
Exactly. Do you think Sam Tompkins will play for Sean Wayne? Yes, there's a bond there, which is going to stay there while Sean's in the job. So, again, back to the point, I think it's essential, Mick, that they do have that relationship. I think you'll know through Bradford, Brian Noble.
Correct.
Brian Mack and them still talk about Nobby, like very quirky coach, very good sense of humour, very good coach, one of the best coaches at that time in the world. But a lot of them speak, do you get me? They all they have a smile. I always think when I mention Nobby, they all just like look up and their eyebrow goes up and they like having...
Honestly, you think to Brian Noble having to deal with Brian McDermott, Joe Vagana, Paul Anderson, Stuart Field, and he had his jobs cut out.
Stuart Youngfield, and obviously, like you said, Radders. And
Lee Radders, Andy Lynch. Craig, moving on, Lewis Dodd. Obviously, we spoke a little bit about this on last week's show. How easy was the contract negotiations? I presume with the emergence of Lewis, there's been, well, you tell me if you can say a slight increase or a major increase. I'm kind of guessing he's now number 7, and we've said that for a number of months, if not years, on this show. I mean, I remember watching Lewis Dodd in that St Helens team at Dudley Hill, 60-odd points to 0. He just absolutely whitewashed Bradford, and you knew he had a very special talent, and that has transferred from the academy to Super League, and he could play in that role for the next 12, 15 years. Obviously, we know he's had an injury this year, Craig. We know he's on the road to recovery. New deal. Tell us about it.
Do you know what? This was one of the hardest deals. I'm trying to be as honest as I can, and I hope Lewis and Andy and Saints and everybody, I appreciate honesty after it's been done. I found it emotionally very hard.
Was Mike Rush holding out? No.
No. Mike were unbelievably good. Couldn't ask for anything. I found it very hard personally, because when you've got a talent like Lewis, honestly, Mick, when it's on and people think that Lewis is looking at what to do for next May, you will have clubs from all over the world with Lewis. Absolutely. And it won't come through, it'll always come through third parties. So it'll be a drop here, dropping a text here, dropping this, dropping that, DM, getting other players to say to him. So I felt all that were coming in, and you've got to handle that pressure of that, as long as saying, Lewis, do you want to stay at Saints? Do you want to go to another club? All the questions that have to be asked when it's run. Saints had to come and do the deal now, mate, because it was out of contract if it had gone to the May the 1st the next year. You've also got, which is not my world, you've got other. I'd never tapped a player who's been with another agent ever in history. You've also got agents non-stop smelling a deal, Mick. They're smelling that. If I can get, so they're going to clubs, and they're also going back to him and saying, if you sign with me, I've got you guaranteed 4 years. So imagine the trust you've got to have with Lewis and Andy and the family. They've got to totally trust me. So me and Andy literally would speak about it. I'd say 40 minutes a day for 4 weeks. Andy's Lewis's dad. Yeah. We're very close.
Big fan of the show as well.
Big fan of the show.
Thank you, Andy.
So we would talk, and every little narrative of that deal we would go through in detail. Then Lewis had come into it. What does Lewis want? Where does he see this? Where does he? Then it's back up to see Mike Rush again. So you're back up to see Rushy, get another meeting with Rushy. Me and Rushy get on really well. We laugh, actually. Got a very similar sense of humour, so we sat laughing it. But it's tough because he knows how risky this is, because he knows the interest in Lewis is massive from everywhere. So then Rushy, you're trying to do the right thing for everybody, Rushy. And in the end, Mick, they did the right thing. I think they did the right thing. Professional as Saints are. We did the right thing for Lewis where he is in his career. So for me, on both parties can tick a box. I think it was the perfect deal for everybody. And again, I sent a private message to Mike. Mike sent one to me. We got it done, pal. It was a great deal. Hopefully, Lewis, the deal structured for giving Lewis a little bit option of movement. If what you don't want to happen, Mick, is let's hope he stays at Saints. Let's say the dream deal, he stays at Saints, 6 grand finals, captains England. Let's just say that's your dream thing. What you don't want is the ceiling of what you can earn potential in this country against somebody saying to you in Australia, there's £800,000 a year. If you play here for 3 years, you don't have to work again. You don't have to work again. That's it. You can play here for 3 years. When you retire, you've probably got £1 million in bank. For 3 years of your life coming here and doing that. Against, you can never earn more than a certain ceiling in our comp.
Correct.
That's a real bad responsibility for myself to have, to making sure that Andy and Lewis and family say, we've got to do the right thing, because we want to make sure his earning potential is met. We don't want Lewis to go through 15 years of rugby, Do you know what? I've said this before, and please, people understand this. 95%, 99% of rugby players go to work the minute they finish. They go to work, they get a normal job. This is nothing like football or rugby union in some aspects. These lads will get a job the minute they finish playing. They have got to get a job. The likes of Mellor, Andy, maybe one or two, maybe Sam Burt, I don't know, maybe
Martin Afire, Jason Robinson.
No, I'd say, yeah, you'd have to find out.
There'll be very few who can.
Yeah, so they're all starting to think. So for Lewis to have a chance of somebody saying, "Bang, there's 3-year deal," I'm sure every fan wants Lewis to stop in our comp. That's what's happened. Ultimately, he's stopping in our comp. It's great for Saints, and he loves Saints. He absolutely loves the club. The potential at that club, and that's a good word to use, potential, because they've already won last 3. But I still think potentially they can win another 3. The fans are great with him. He loves the fans. We get to see him play. I think without the injury, Mick, I think he'd have started in the World Cup. I'll say that again and again and again. Lewis were hitting the form, he'd have played in the World Cup. So I think it's fantastic for one Super League. See, this is a thing. They brought in centralisation. Do you know what that means? The Rugby League wanted to keep all the players in our comp, and so they rewarded every player 3-4 years ago who had central contract.
With that central contract.
It never worked.
No, because at the time, and I think we discussed this religiously on the show, but just for a quick backstory, they were going to use certain players as the poster boys to drive the game and use them in the marketing, but we never saw any of that. It totally backfired and didn't really serve.
No, and the clubs
didn't really serve the purpose.
The leverage the clubs used it were just to give them an extra. Give them less money for the sends, and then they could keep them, which it were against. If there's ever going to be centralisation brought back in or anything for the Super League, if IMG get involved, to keep Lewis Dodd in our competition, 100%. It's 100%.
You've got to do it. But we've just seen the announcement by Newcastle Knights. Will Price will obviously be leaving Huddersfield at the end of the year, and he'll be joining Newcastle Knights next year. So again, you're losing a young, exciting player. You are,
and listen, let's hope they get these calls right. Let's hope the agents and the families who are making them calls, let's hope Will's a fantastic prospect. Does it? Do you know what? Me and Andy talked about it. We looked at it. I think they're very young men to be. Do you know what I mean? Make a lot of pressure on a young lad going over there at that age. In a pivotal position like half for Lewis, for us it was, listen, let him, he's going to grow as a player. Let him grow as a player. Let him grow with the club. I think if Saints, here's one for you. If Saints went into an RL now, Mick, where would they finish? And let me just explain to people who don't know Rugby League cap. We spend 1.8 million, we'll have 2 or 3 marquees out of that. So let's say we might spend 2 million. They could spend up to 7 million, 6.8, whatever it is. I don't know what it is this year. So it's so unfair saying, would we? I still think Saints would compete at top 6. I think after top 6. Yeah, honestly. Take the top 6 away. Well, think about the World Club. We play their best. Sydney Roosters beat Saints by, 12 points? But they were beating teams that year by 30 and 40 points.
No, it's a valid point. If you were to ask me, I think St Helens would be, I wouldn't say a bottom 4 team. I think they'd be, I wouldn't have them in the top 6, Craig.
No, I said just out of the top 6.
They'd pick up 4 or 5 wins. I think...
So Gold Coast, do you think...
No. I think St Helens would compete for the majority of games. There'd be a couple of ugly blowouts when they come up against a Penrith or a Melbourne or a Brisbane or a South Sydney, the way they've been playing recently, or a Parramatta. I think St Helens would be a bottom to mid-table team, probably 11th, 10th.
And again, so if you look at that, when does a player peak? When's a player's peak? I'd say
Well, it depends, because obviously, if you look at the Jamie Peacock model, he was just getting better. He was aging like a fine wine.
But let's say the average player probably peaks
27, 28, 29, yeah.
29, 28, say that's
certainly in those pivotal full-back, half-back roles.
So, again, if you get a player who's just learning and learning and learning, then he's getting better and better and better. if he can peak or really get to his maximum performance of potential at 25, 26, and you've got this lad who's got every trick in the book, can defend, let's get one thing straight, Mick. When you go over there to NRL or whatever you're going to choose to do, defence in NRL, the first thing they ask you, can they defend? Because they're going to get absolutely run at. I think as a young player, you've got to develop that skill to be able to go over there anyway. You imagine going over there. I watched a couple of clips, and this is, by the way, I'm not judging anybody. Please don't anybody give any answer. But people having a go at Dom Young about his defence. I'm like, but he probably hasn't had time to learn his defence. He never got 5 years here to learn to defend. Yeah. He went over there at 19 from playing academy.
Correct.
And then 12 months later, they're saying,
thrown him in, yeah.
Yeah, and they're saying he can't defend. Well, stick up for lad. He should have had 3 or 4, in my opinion, he should have had 3 or 4 years learning his trade before you then judge him whether he can.
Well, the logical thing was, before this throwing him in at Newcastle, I mean, it's great that his offensive players been getting a lot of plaudits, but, throw him in put him in the New South Wales Cup. Let him have a full year in there, but, clearly Newcastle, I'm not sure who's advising Newcastle Knights, but, Kai Pearce-Paul, Dominic Young, Will Price, there's a pattern emerging.
I met the guy. It was, I'm trying to think of his name, but lovely guy, me and Joe.
He clearly values our young players and the young British talent that is being unearthed here.
Well, I think they used the Canberra model at the time.
Yeah.
I think Canberra with George, Elliott, John Bateman and Ryan Sutton.
Yeah, Ryan
Sutton. I think he mentioned that a lot, that he thought Canberra got to a grand final on a backbone of 5 or 6 players. Yeah. So I think he's looking at that and saying, plus the cheaper.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, let's be honest.
Yeah, Dom Young, relatively unproven. Here you go, Dom. They're probably licking the lips. I'm not sure what Will Price and Kai Pearce-Paul have been offered, but clearly, judging by Leon's reaction on social media, Leon Price is over the moon that his boy's going to be going to Australia. I think Leon's on about going over with him, so so he feels at home. But yeah, you're right, Craig. Compared to what an 18, 19, 20-year-old Australian, I mean, Charlie Staines, the Samoan international, his deal with Penrith, I was reading about that, and you're looking at some of the money that young 19-year-olds are on over there.
But remember this.
I know they get the multi-million TV deal.
I'm going to tell you now.
Compared to ours.
Let me get this straight with people who are judging this. With that comes pressure. Oh, listen, with that comes pressure. You're going to put some people up that early to play over there. You have got, because over there, I speak to, Big Bopper Dave Feater with his brother, and Dave says, mate, if you're anywhere around there, the pressure on where you are, you can be walking out, he said, and there'll be press coming out of everywhere, taking photos of you, doing this, judging you harshly. You are in the hot. Do you know what I'm saying? I hope mentally that they're all ready for it, Mick. I hope, all the young players who do go off, you've just mentioned 3 players there. Let's make sure they're mentally strong enough to be able to handle what's coming. Do you know what I mean? Because let's be honest now. Who was the one player, Mick, who we've watched the NRL now, and if you said to me the best advocate of transferring from here to the NRL at a young age was Sam Burgess.
Correct.
19, 20?
Yes.
But let's be honest here, how much better was Sam than most of the others who've gone over? Sam was already world class at 19.
Yes.
Did he play the test match against the
New Zealand? Yeah,
New Zealand.
Great Britain, yeah. Well, I know Great Britain has been reborn now by the RFL, but 2007 was the final series where Great Britain was going to be unified with Scotland, Ireland and Wales, and it was 2007, his final year at Bradford before he went to South Sydney, and we all remember what he did on Fui Fui Moi Moi at Huddersfield. 18 years of age, bang, Moi Moi goes down, unbelievable.
So you're talking about Sam, who at that age was probably in the top 5 forwards in the world by the time he went.
Correct.
I'm unsure whether that is the same over the last 6 or 7 years.
Yes.
I don't think that we've sent a player. Adrian Morley went over as a real top international and thingy player. Gazellis went over 2 or 3 grand finals, playing for England. Tigers. Probably one of the best back rowers in the world at the time. Do you get me? Mm-hmm. So the ones who I think of, that's what the bit I'd get right. I think the pressure's on. Back to Lewis. maybe one day, Mick, when he's ready, he could set it alight if he wants to stay in this comp. And, you know, I always had this with Danny. We got offered 2 or 3 times with Danny to go to, once for Union, I don't know if he remembers, it was Saracens. We got a phone call of somebody through somebody else. The other one was, I'm trying to think of his name, Matt Adamson, I think, had gone to a club and he was recruiting for might have been Gold Coast or somebody, Canberra or whatever. And maybe Manly, we've got quite a few ones. I look at now and, you know, you should Danny have tested his sen at that level, or is Danny revered at the club of Leeds when he walks in? How do you become a club legend, Mick, if you just don't do that? Can you become, if you're a Bradford fan, if you see Bradford, ex-players from Bradford now, where do you get as a fan the most affinity for? Do you look at somebody who stayed at your club? Paul Deacon, when you see Paul Deacon, do you feel warmer than John Bateman?
Yes, because...
That's not against John, by the way.
No. Listen, look, I know people get sick and tired. Yes, I do support Bradford. I try to do this show independently. But yes, because John Bateman was up and coming, and John obviously left right early doors. He was sold to Wigan because the club needed the money. Whereas Paul, you had 6, 7, 8 fantastic seasons with Paul Deacon winning all those grand finals, Challenge Cup finals, World Club challenges. So you actually got the value and like you say, that emotional connection between us on the terraces, sat in the seats at Old Trafford.
God, we're talking live transfer and then missed call from Big G, Harrington. Mick's just said, is there any more movement?
Listen.
God.
Yes. I'll keep that one to myself.
The answer could be yes. So yeah, I think there's a do you know when Danny and Rob and Kev go back to Leeds, sometimes it's a bit.
Yeah, because they've been
all right, I'll throw one in at Saints. Paul Sculthorpe.
Correct, yes.
Without doubt.
Yes.
Was top 5 player in the world for about 4 years.
And he was, I know obviously he joined from Warrington at a young age, but you know, he was there, he gave great service. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to, it shouldn't always be about grand finals and Challenge Cups, but you know, when you're a key part of a side like Paul Deacon was very integral pivot, playing 6 and 7, Sculthorpe at loose forward in that great St Helens.
But to the fans, here's a question to the fans, Mick. When Paul Sculthorpe walks up there compared to a player who spent 3 or 4 years there, you know, when your Sculthorpe walks up, when your John Wilkin walks up, when your Paul Wellens, who could have gone certainly to NRL, when Chris Radlinski goes to Wigan, is there more of an affinity
100%
on seeing that player than a player who spends 4 years goes to? And do you get me?
Without question, Chris.
I think if Adrian Morley, and he was unbelievable at Leeds, and ultimately he went to Bradford and he finished off at Warrington, but JP at Leeds would be revered more than Moz. Mm-hmm. Might be wrong. I'd say when they see, and JP would be revered at Bradford.
Well,
Jamie Jones Buchanan would be fondly met for the history. Gary's massive on doing ex-players. He does it all the time. I think they've got another one. And he'll invite, they've got the Challenge Cup side that won this and that. And he'll have all the... I think the ones the ones the more affinity towards is the ones who you know what I mean, who stayed absolutely... Yeah. Now, it's funny, I'll put a challenge out, some questions for next week. As a fan, if you've got somebody who's... Our comp needs to make it mix so these players can earn as much as NRL in a dream world, or certainly in our comp. That's the dream. This is where I like to think the marquee signings make is not always Australia, New Zealand, Tonga players. Do you get me? How many marquee signings in our comp are English?
There you go.
So I want to.
There's your answer.
I'd like that to happen. I'd say 90% are overseas.
Correct.
Marquee.
Correct.
Why not make our players the marquees and say to these young men, some of them, why don't you? You know what I mean? Why don't you stop here? Listen, I get a bit of stick, and me and Andy talked about it. Said, you know, Craig, some agents, I think, dropped it in through third party. Craig doesn't do deals in NRL. He's not done many deals. I've done limited deals. it's not a personal choice. I would make that deal in Australia tomorrow, Mick. I've just had a club on now. You won't believe it, for a player who is not even playing at his club this year, but I've had a top 4 NRL side on for the player to go over there. Wow. So and that's fact.
What, without naming the player or the club, what is that based on, Craig?
Based on his size and athleticism. Yeah.
So they're clearly doing a lot more homework than the current. Is he injured or is it?
No, he's just not getting played.
Wow. So the NRL is seeing that potential.
Yeah. Can he come?
The Super League club.
Yeah. Could he come next year and try it?
Blind and oblivious. Wow.
I won't say blind and oblivious, I'd say, because the pressure at that club is now. They're saying if we take him here, that. But what I'm saying is, I would certainly do. And when the time's right for my players who want to go. But I want to make sure that's my responsibility, to make sure that player is ready mentally to do it. Do you get me? Do you know what we should do on this show? And it'd be great when I know John Bateman a little bit. I've met John a few times when he was at Bradford as a young man. I've met him, I seem to. I'd love John or somebody like George Williams who went and came back. I'd love to say what is it? Is it the family that brings them back? Is it that the comp's not what they thought? Is it that the pressure's different? Is it like, do you get me? You look at few of the players. Elliot Whitehead's been unbelievable, hasn't he? He's lived it. He's gone over there. But I look at some of them and I'm thinking,
for a lad from West Bowling.
Yeah, unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you look at some and I'm like, wow. I wonder what. I once asked Morley, I don't know if he remembers, I'd probably just started being an agent. And I think I dropped it into him. I don't know if he won't even remember. And he did, that's what stuck with me, Mick. He said, I wanted to make sure I was still young enough, because I think Moz went over as a single man. But he said, I also wanted to make sure I was mature enough to be able to handle what we're going to get thrown at me. So the 24, 25 age, it suited Adrian. Do you get me? I think Gaz Ellis was probably 27, a bit old, 28. But I think that age suited it because he wanted to still see Australia when he could go and see it without having kids and you know what I mean? But secondly, he meant to make sure he was tough enough mentally to be able to handle it. So, listen, back to Lewis Dodd. Saints have got an unbelievable young talent. A young talent I think can go on and rewrite every history that he wants. I think he can write his own history. Could go on. Here's one for you. Could go on to be the next, Sean Long, even better. In my opinion, not in my humble opinion, it could go on to play at Saints, then go over and do what he wants to do. The world's that young man's oyster. Great deal of Saints, great club. You know what, Mick? All three of them deals, apart from the emotional bit on the Lewis, the emotional thing on the Lewis were tough. Dealing with good people. Hopefully they set same.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a bit of a full 80 minutes transfer special. Obviously talking about the player swap deal between Toby King and Jake Wardle. Alex Mellor, of course, Leeds to Cass, and Lewis Dodd staying in the English game at St Helens.
And we might have one for you next week, because on the timing, Mick, that is definitely. Here's one tip for you. If you get a CEO rings you on a Monday morning, I'll guarantee you it means the player, something's happening. If you get that happening,
well, I've seen who's called you. So am I putting two together? Because I've seen the player called you below, and I know he's on his way out at the Super League.
Well, I need
club.
to turn it.
I know he's on his way out.
But I'm telling you, Monday morning. If you, and by the way, like I said, I've just done 4 days at Glastonbury, and I'm still trying to recover. But let me tell you, if you get a phone call on a Monday morning, Mick, here's one for you. It'll be done by a Wednesday if I know. There you go.
Well, there you go. Big news for Leeds. Something's happening.
No, we'll get shot. No.
You've just said Big G's called. When you say Big G,
he might be asking me if I want some lunch, or he might be asking me, what I think of.
Well, anyway, Gary might just be phoning Craig for lunch, who knows. But yeah, thank you for watching the full 80 minutes transfer special. Keep subscribing to Show Me the Money Rugby League TV. We're past 1,000 subscribers. We want to keep growing, and what you're probably going to see is more, I'm going to say short clips. I think this is probably 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah, Sam said 5 minutes.
We've gone off on a tangent. But yeah, this is like a little bit of an added extra talking about those player deals. Hopefully you enjoy it. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on the free transfer deals that we've spoken about, and obviously the contract extension for Lewis Dodd. Don't forget, the full 80 minutes will be out later this week, and you can watch that as well. Thank you very much.